Hello, my name's Daniel Van Kuren, and I'm here with my brother Dylan, and we're going to do a quick interview here about the Ebola virus. So Dylan, Ebola was a big news story in 2014, but it has been around for years before now. Do you know where and when the Ebola virus first began? And also, do you know why it's called Ebola?
I don't know why the Ebola virus is called Ebola, but I think I heard in the news it started like the 1980s and it originated in the Congo.
Good. According to the World Health Organization, Ebola first appeared in 1976 in the Zara, Sudan, and Yambuku in the Congo. In the Congo, Yambuku was located near the Ebola River, so that's why now they call the disease Ebola. So, second question, Dylan. Back when Ebola first hit the news, how worried were you about the disease coming here to the United States? Like 1 to 10, how afraid were you of it?
I'd have to say like a 3 or 4 out of 10. I think it would be a lot higher if I lived in like New York City or somewhere where I'd have a lot more people coming through.
Yeah. Okay, good answer. Okay, Dylan, what do you know about the symptoms of the Ebola virus?
I do not know much at all about the symptoms of Ebola. I know that it causes you to come down with a fever, and then also one of the things of it is it causes you to bleed internally.
Okay. So part of that was right. You know, some symptoms can be things like fever, muscle pain, headache, or sore throat. Those are usually followed by vomiting, diarrhea, a rash, and symptoms of impaired kidney and liver function. Some cases, people have had symptoms of external or internal bleeding. And so far, there are no licensed Ebola vaccines, but there is 2 potential vaccines that they're working on right now, and hopefully they'll be ready someday soon so people can be treated for this disease. Okay, Dylan, question 3. In the news, Ebola was described as a very deadly disease. But do you know what the fatality rate was for Ebola?
I think I saw somewhere in the news that the fatality rate for Ebola was around like 50%.
Okay, close. That's good. The average fatality rate for Ebola is actually 50%. Some individual cases, however, the rates of fatality have varied from 25% to 90% in some outbreaks. In this current outbreak, in 2014, there have been more fatalities in this one outbreak than all other outbreaks combined. So Dylan, next question, number 4. Are you aware of how Ebola is transmitted?
I believe Ebola can only be transmitted through contact of bodily fluids.
Okay, that's good. Ebola can be transmitted through bodily fluids, like Dylan said, and blood of infected animals and humans. Another way it can be transmitted, though, is through bedding and clothing that has fluids on them. Another thing that not many people know is burials of dead bodies that have been infected with Ebola is a huge way that Ebola has spread. Now people are more aware, and they're trying to stop from being infected through the burials.
Dr. Tim Jakutic of Médecins Sans Frontières will return to West Africa soon, but he joins us first live from Canada now. Thank you, Doctor, for being with us. The biggest Ebola outbreak ever. Were you surprised at the scale in West Africa, these numbers we're seeing?
When I first spoke with the epidemiologist on the ground in my first week there, which was early on in the outbreak, the epidemiologist actually did say that what we're seeing is the tip of the iceberg. And the reason they were saying that was because this is the first time that we've actually seen the outbreak in a dense urban environment like this.
Okay, so therefore you realized even early on in March that this could become a really big problem.
That was why one of the major things that we were doing at the time was that we were putting together outreach programs so that we would be able to spread the message, the public health measures that were required at that time. Bring awareness to the people, let them understand how this virus is spread and what they can do to prevent contamination.
And that's one of the issues, right, in West Africa, because Ebola, it's not something physicians there are familiar with. And also there are customs, you were telling my producer, such as touching the body after death, et cetera, that are increasing the transmission rate, right?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, so are you getting that message out to the people affected? I mean, that's going to be your biggest challenge, right?
That was the biggest challenge, because the problem is we have to get this message out, and it's very difficult to do that because we do have this outbreak in rural areas. So it's very difficult to get this message out to people who don't necessarily have a radio or a television or internet access.
Yeah.
Within the city, we also have multitudes of people who just don't simply have access to this type of information. So we made it a point of ours to get in touch with community leaders, get in touch with religious leaders, and have them try to spread the message on the local level.
Because there's no cure. I mean, you know, you can't cure. It's a 90% death rate. But what I found interesting reading up on this is that Ebola is actually not extremely contagious, right? In the sense that you still need to have some contact with bodily fluids. It's not airborne. Am I correct in saying that?
That's correct. If somebody sneezes, somebody coughs in your general vicinity, you won't get the virus like you would, for instance, influenza. This virus is actually relatively difficult to be infected with, but it's the behavior of the people which allows the disease to be spread in that particular part of the world.
Now, you're going back, I understand, in a few days. I mean, what's your biggest challenge now?
I believe the biggest challenge at this point will be trying to get that message out. That was the main point that we were really trying to work on when I was there the first time. That is where the challenge lies. When we were working in our unit there in Conakry, we were actually seeing fairly good results with the patients that we were dealing with. It's a small sample size of patients that I had, but when we were there, we were actually seeing a roughly 50% survival rate. So we were seeing promising figures, and we also wanted to spread that word out as well.
All right,
it was very important for people to understand.
I was going to say briefly, why, when we often read 90% death rate, why would you, in your estimation, why was your survival rate 50% where you were working? What was different? Well, I also have to stress that this was not necessarily a scientifically significant sample size. We were dealing with 20 to 30 patients that I saw. But nevertheless, because the message that we tried to give out in regards to the work that we were doing and the results that we were seeing is that this is, in fact, just a virus. It's a virus that the human body can create antibodies against, and the method of treatment that we provided was supportive therapy. So people had a fever, we would break it with paracetamol. People had diarrhea, we would provide them with fluids. We were doing everything we possibly could to just allow the immune system to focus on that one disease and take away any other complicating factors. And we were seeing fairly good results with that, and we really did try to send that message out to decrease stigmatization and allow people. Thank you. And good luck to you. I was going to say, Tim Jagetic of Médecins Sans Frontières, a really admirable organization. I've seen work in the field in many disaster zones and conflict zones. Always amazing work. Thanks to you, and good luck on your trip to West Africa in a few days.
Okay, so I'm going to talk a little bit about Ebola and how it relates to the course material. The Ebola outbreak relates to course material because the concept of transnational diseases. Transnational diseases affect our world affairs. Today, when a disease breaks out, it can spread very quickly because our world is connected to each other in many ways, like transportation. Transnational diseases today become the whole world's problem, not just the problem of the country they started in. When Ebola started in Africa, it quickly became a concern of countries in Europe and the United States here in North America. The Ebola virus also caused a sense of xenophobia, which is the fear or dislike of other nationalities. Here in the United States, many people became fearful of West Africans coming to the United States because they feared they would be carrying Ebola. This was not just the case here in the United States. In Africa, Sierra Leone's national soccer team faced discrimination when playing against other countries. players in the team would have Ebola chanted at them during matches, and some players on the other teams didn't want to shake their hands. This outbreak as a whole caused West Africans to be treated differently, and Ebola also caused an unnecessary fear that many people still have today about the disease. People can stop having these fears if they stay informed and don't panic when presented with a situation where Ebola is present.